Today was a near perfect day for Avatar news. From information on the animation style to some interesting insights on how canon will be dealt with going forward, and whether or not the novels and comics will be adapted to the new movies. Stick with me and we'll talk about it after this intro. Hey everyone, my name is Antoine Bandele. I am your resident geek talking about all things Avatar. Today, I have some extremely exciting news that I am super stoked for, and all of this is coming from a live podcast out of Comic-Con Metapod and being reported on from Avatar News, which again, we know that Avatar News is a super legit source. They're like 95% accurate. So one of the first things I wanted to touch upon is that one of the podcasters asked Mike and Brian, the creators of the Avatar franchise, whether or not that these new movies that were recently announced, the movie about the Kyoshi era, Zuko's era, and then Korra's era, if they will be adaptations of the previous work. For Kyoshi, that would have been the novel series that she had in 2019 and 2020 called Rise of Kyoshi and Shadow of Kyoshi, which takes place in her early Avatar career when she discovers that she is the Avatar. And then, of course, with Zuko, we have several things that we can adapt from The Promise or The Search, which is basically kind of book 4 of Avatar, which a lot of you are always asking about, like, what happened to book 4 of Avatar: The Last Airbender? It exists. It's in the comic books. Please read them. They're good. And then, of course, with Korra, we have nothing that could be adapted because this is supposed to take place after the Korra series. So, or unless you would maybe do Turf Wars or the Kuvira comic, but that seems to not be the case. These are going to be entirely new stories. And here's what they said exactly. This is what Mike DiMartino, who is one of the creators, says. I think the thing we're not doing right now, not saying that this couldn't happen someday, is like, we're not adapting the graphic novels into a movie or TV show. We're not adapting the YA novels into a movie or TV show. Again, that could happen in the future. And then Brian follows that up by saying, but we are feeding off of them. And this is incredible news. I personally wanted this to be the case. I know a lot of the Avatar fans out there who I sort of actively disagreed with wanted to see adaptations specifically of the comic books from the Last Airbender timeline. But for me, I'm always way more invested and more interested in seeing new stories, which is always something that Bright, in particular, the creators of the show, have always said that they want to do new things. They were never much of fans of retreading and going back and doing the same thing. So it always made sense to me that these will not be adaptations because of that mentality that these two creators have. And I'm really happy that we are getting new stories because I think that we will get a much richer experience from Avatar, at least from the start of all of this stuff coming out, if we get new stories rather than doing a retread of the adaptations. And my thinking is that if people are interested in this new material and they want more insight into what is feeding into these new movies, is going back and looking at those original books and comics. For instance, you guys know I talk about the Kyoshi novels all the time. It would be great if this new Kyoshi movie was so good that people are like, oh, I want to learn more about Kyoshi. And then they go and read these fantastic books that are waiting for them. Speaking of feeding off of several things that have come before, the podcast also has Mike DiMartino saying this: we've been involved in all those main ancillary stories. He's talking about, in this case, the expanded universe of comic books and novels that have been a part of the Avatar mythos. He continues on to say, so in our minds, it's mostly canon. There's probably some stuff we may go back and like, that doesn't totally line up with this. So there may be some little tweaks here and there, but as of right now, we're proceeding as if all this stuff is part of the proper universe and hopefully building on it. And I think that is the smartest thing to do. As we know, or some of you might not be aware of this, but in the past, there have been several things that have come out about Avatar. We talked about it briefly on this channel when we talked about some old trading card games and then video games that are canon, but not canon. So for instance, a lot of people aren't really familiar with the Legend of Korra video game being a canon story that takes place between books 2 and 3. There's also the trading card game where we got Monk Afiko, who was the betrayer of the Airbenders. But then we also have stuff that has more precedent for canon, like the Kyoshi novels and, of course, the comic books. This is a very similar situation to what's going on with Star Wars. Prior to the Disney Inquisition, where they bought out everything that was Lucasfilm and Star Wars related, there used to be a tier system of Star Wars canon. There used to be like the George Lucas canon, and there was like the book canon, the video game canon, and there was like basically tiers of, how much canon would be a part of that. And now it's a little bit more easy because Disney has just the division of Legends canon, which was everything prior to 2015, and then the Disney Lucasfilm canon, which is, everything that has started from The Force Awakens till now. And it seems like here, Mike and Brian are kind of going with the approach of the original Star Wars canon, where there's going to be different tiers of canon, where whether or not things are referenced in later movies or later works determines whether or not it is actually canon or not. So right now, things like that trading card game that I was speaking about is still in that weird canon, but not a canon, sort of a situation that we have going on. So it's very interesting. I actually think that is the best decision right now. And the way that we can probably look at it going forward is that anything that is definitively canon will be that which is specifically looked over by the creators of the show. And then following up with the best news, and I wanted to say this one for last because it's the one I want to geek out the most. First, let me tell you what Brian Konietzko said in his interview on this podcast, Comic-Con Metapod. We all love all sorts of animation and we're doing all sorts of things, but our main bread and butter is 2D animation. It's an homage to anime and all the stuff that we love. That doesn't mean we're going to be like hardcore straight edge 2D using cells and paintings and backgrounds with poster paint. The way we always look at it is start with hand-drawn, handmade artwork, and then what can technology do to help us enhance it, to help us deepen it, to help the filmmaking to make it more cinematic. But we're gonna be coming at it from a 2D direction. We're not planning on doing anything at the moment, especially none of our big projects that are starting purely 3D and then trying to stylize them. We looked at it and we thought about it, and there's beautiful stuff happening in that space. Arcane and Spider-Verse are gorgeous and groundbreaking and pushing the envelope, but that's their own look and we're not chasing that stuff. We didn't form Avatar Studios to go chasing someone else's coattails. I think that stuff's beautiful, but a ton of other studios are chasing those looks. Leave that to them. Those artists worked hard to form that look, and we're looking hard to form our own look. But we're not doing anything purely 3D. And oh my God, guys, if you've been on this channel for a while, you know that I have been disparaging the idea of Avatar converting over to 3D. So when I heard the rumor from last year where it seems like they were thinking about going the route of an Arcane or Spider-Verse sort of look, now they're starting to backpedal and going back to 2D. So what we're probably going to get is something more similar to what we saw in Legend of Korra. Because if you remember in Legend of Korra, there were moments where 3D was integrated with the 2D. And I like the idea of, and in case you didn't know, a lot of 2D animated works that look hand-drawn are actually done by computers. So I like that they're still going to maintain that base aesthetic, the aesthetic that we all love about Avatar, because I think that's the most special thing about the Avatar series is their 2D look, their hand animated drawn look. Now, whether they're doing it as a purist and they're actually going to be drawing each and every frame, or they're going to generate that through computers, I don't care. I just want the end result to look like the Avatar that I know and that I appreciate, because I think it works so well in that space. And I cannot be more happy with the news that we got today. This is absolutely the best news I've heard out of Avatar Studios since we've got the initial announcements. I really like how they're going to be dealing with no adaptations for the new stories. It's all going to be new stories. Really like that they're going to mostly keep everything in canon that they can, but they are going to tweak it so that it makes sense for whatever new story that they're trying to tell. And I absolutely adore that they are going to be doing this as 2D, whether generated from computers or from humans who are hand animating. I don't really care about that part of it so much. I just care about the end result. Super stoked. But I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. What is the most exciting bit of news that came out from Avatar News today? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, I'll see you on the next one. Peace, love, and remember, be water, my friends.